Today is Thursday, September 15th, and welcome to Zoom with Zardy. I'm happy to bring you the Democratic candidates for the village of Solvay today. This is my only village that I'm doing during this election season. It's the only village actually with contested candidates. The East Syracuse, Camillus, and Elbridge and Tully villages are also having elections in November, but they're not contested. None of the, and they're also not partisan. They don't have Democrats and Republicans running in them, but the village of Solvay does. And as you know, the village of Solvay has a very infamous mayor, Mayor Derek Bianchi, who's the Republican mayor of Solvay, has been in the paper many times for many different reasons, many different antics at the board. And Deb Degilio is running for mayor against him on the Democratic side. I interviewed her in this episode, along with Charles Spataro, Brittany Abend, and Mr. McVicker, who is running for first, second, and third council in Solvay, and they're hoping to sweep the elections this year to try to bring some sanity back to the board, to the Solvay board and government. I think they have outstanding ideas for how to move Solvay forward, and I hope you stick around for the interview. Yesterday, the New York State Independent, and I use that term loosely, redistricting commission were supposed to release maps, and they did. However, we got two for the price of one because the redistricting commission could not agree. There's equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats on them. And this is why I use the term independent loosely there. They're not independents. They're not randomly chose citizens, but they are people that are appointed by other political powers. And they could not come up with a consensus on their Senate, Assembly, or most importantly, their congressional maps. So the future of these maps are highly in doubt. They released a Democratic version and a Republican version. More than likely, this means that the legislature will end up drawing the maps, and that won't happen until January or February. So we're a long way away from this being done. I know a lot of people were very excited about getting some maps yesterday, and so was I. However, the decision to release two sets of maps only leads to one conclusion: that this commission is hopelessly deadlocked, that they will not come to a decision, and without a set of maps that to propose to the legislature, and then the legislature will have to draw their own. Now, the legislature is dominated by Democrats, both in the Assembly and the Senate, and they are veto-proof majorities. However, under the current system, the Senate may not be able to come to a conclusion based on Democrats' votes alone. But there is a proposal on the ballot this year that makes it easier for one party to draw those maps. Now, there's good and bad in those decisions. But before I opine about that, what I want to say is New York really missed an opportunity in 2015 when they decided to go along with this redistricting coalition. As you know, I'm an advocate for independent redistricting done by citizens that are drawn at random and that reflect the community as a whole. I did that in the, I pushed for it in the city of Syracuse, which adopted it, and I pushed for it in the county, which did not adopt it. And the system that we have in New York State is more closely to the county redistricting than the city redistricting, which is going along just fine. But this is maybe a preview of what we might see with the county redistricting next year, with a deadlocked partisan commission that cannot come up with maps, and it has to go to courts or other places to draw those maps. And so New York really, missed the boat. And now it's important to remember that back when this redistricting commission was proposed, we had a much different New York. The state Senate was in Republican hands. The Governor Cuomo, was much more moderate, much more even conservative in many areas of democracy than his state, his assembly Democrats. So there was a poll to have a redistricting commission that took it out of the legislature, but that poll was to have a bipartisan one and not an independent one, which would always give the Republicans some say in the redistricting or the minority party. And while that sounds good in practice, and the way this was done, we remember New York is an overwhelmingly Democratic state. The way this was done was the Republicans kind of dug in their heels, and so did the Democrats, and they weren't able to come up with maps. So it's important that um, after these maps are drawn, and they probably will be drawn by the legislature, and there's probably no avoiding that. And there will more than likely be a court case, and there'll probably be no avoiding that as well. But once the legislature draws the maps and their final form are adopted, New York should really look at doing a more independent redistricting commission, not one that is so based on having equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, which will then lead to a stalemate, but one based on having equal representation of the populace of New York as a whole that is not tied to political power brokers and thus can come up with maps that are fair to the communities that are shaped by those maps. Because looking at both the Democrat and Republican maps, and I only gave a cursory look because they're not going to be the same. They don't really help upstate New York. They don't really serve communities of interest. There's a lot of putting incumbents against one another, which is supposedly frowned upon in this redistricting committee. There seems to be a good deal of gamesmanship here with these maps, and that's to be expected. I'm shocked that politics is happening here. I'm shocked that there's gambling in this casino, but it will be important for New York, I hope, to re-examine the redistricting process for the next time we do redistricting in 2030. And yes, this is a once in a 10-year thing, and it looks like that at this point, the redistricting commission has not been able to get their job done, and it will go back to the legislature as it's done in the previous incarnations of this of redistricting in New York. But yet, time moves on, and so do we, and we must battle for a better future. So that's all that's going on right now. Please remember that if you need to get an absentee ballot, you can go to our website, onvote.net, and apply online. You can do that all the way up until October 18th. Absentee ballots are going out on Friday for this election. We are, just a few days away, really, just a few weeks away from the election. So please make sure you go out there, and if you have time to volunteer for a candidate, please do so. Next week, this week on Sunday, I'll have the Camillus town Democrats that are running for town office. And then starting next week, I'll be starting my Onondaga County Legislature series, which will have most of the county legislators that are running for office this year, right up until Election Day. I just released yesterday my County Legislative District 9, Wonky Wednesday. I hope to do a bonus version of that on Friday to do Onondaga County Legislature 10. I'm trying to get all 17 districts done before Election Day and move it along on that. But time is marching on for me as well. So hopefully I'll get all these lofty goals done, and we'll be able to move on and really have a wonderful election. And I hope that you participate. So there's my dog in the back telling you to vote. That's his way of telling you to vote. But thank you very much, and enjoy this interview with the Solvay Democratic candidates. Bye-bye. I'm very happy to have my good friends, the Solvay Democrats that are running for Solvay Village government. We have Deb Degilio, who's running for mayor, Brittany Abend, who's running for first ward councilor, Charles Spataro, who's running for second ward councilor, and William McVicker, who is running for re-election for third ward councilor. thank you very much for coming on Zoom with Czarny, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for
You're
having
welcome,
us.
sir. It's good to be here.
So Solvay is a unique village. It's one of the biggest villages in Onondaga County, but it's also a village that holds elections in November. And it's a partisan village, which is abnormal here in Onondaga County, where you tend to run on traditional party lines instead of non-party lines. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to have the village of Solvay on. You're my only village that I'm having on this year. And it's also been a unique village over the last 4 years. It's been a lot of news on the current mayor and the focus on his antics. But what I wanted to talk to you about is what you're going to bring, to the table. So we're going to start with Deb Degilio. Deb, you're running for mayor of Solvay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
My background, well, presently I'm a trustee. I was voted in 2 years ago in the 3rd ward. So I've been working on learning all about how to be a trustee and how the village works. My background, I've been the self-employed licensed massage therapist for 25 years, and I have a bachelor's in health. And I'm currently, since I became a trustee, started taking my master's in public administration to help me learn how to become a better trustee and better serve the community.
That's awesome. Brittany, you're running for 1st Ward Council. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I am a licensed social worker. I have lived in Syracuse my whole life. I grew up in a small village, so I understand small village dynamics and how, getting to know your neighbor is really the best thing in the world. I also have nonprofit experience. I have over 10 years in nonprofits. I currently work for Onondaga County, so I understand how the government works, and I'm in charge of a lot of grants and funding. So I have a lot of experience with that. And I also have experience being on a board as well. And
Charles, you're running again. This is your 2nd run. You were hyper close 2 years ago when you ran. Tell us a little bit about yourself in running for 2nd Ward Council.
So I was a self-employed for about 13 years. I was a professional artist since high school. I had my own business for a while, and after the COVID lockdowns happened and everything opened back up again, I decided to retire from that, and I'm actually now in the process of getting my master's in mental health counseling. And I manage a local small business with about 7 employees, about 60 or so vendors. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Awesome. And Mr. McVicker, Bill, you're running for re-election in 3rd Ward. But why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and how long you've been working for the people of Solvay?
I've been a trustee for the past 6 years. Originally, I was appointed by Mayor Benedetti when a seat was vacated. And I've ran twice since then and won both times. So I've been a trustee for 6 years. My background, I'm a retired automotive engineer for Chrysler. Was there 30 years. I owned my own business previous to that. Done a lot of budgetary work. My job at Chrysler, I probably handled $15 million a year. That's about it. I don't need to go too much further than that. I have a lot of automotive experience, and again, I've handled a lot of budget work and stuff like that. It's what I enjoy doing.
No, that's great. And thank you again for putting yourself out there and running again. So Solvay, has a lot of representatives. There's a mayor at the top, but there's 2 councilors in each ward. And they run in 4-year terms. And so that's why there's only 3 people up here, is because that's the people that are running. And so, but we're going to go back to you, Deb. Deb, what do you believe are the most important things? Why are you running? for mayor of Solvay?
Well, first of all, in the 2 years that I've been a part of the board, it's been evident to me that voices are not able to be heard or expressed, and opinions or are not able to be always taken into consideration. I feel that's a poor way to run a government, village government, as the trustees represent the people. So in turn, the people's voices aren't being heard. And as well as I don't feel as though all residents' voices are listened to equally. I mean, that's the experience I've had, and I'd like to get more of the community involved and be able to be heard, and more of the decision-making based across discussions and collaborations of what is the best for the village, instead of coming from a one tunnel vision, yes or no, black or white answer. I think the best decisions are made through debate and through difference of opinions, and able to work together to come to creative solutions. That's one of the main reasons I'm running. Also, there's a level of transparency that I feel is not being allowed right now in the government, in the local government here. Access to records, just basic regular duties, or I'm going to say maybe rights, or what's usually allowable in local government, just doesn't seem to be available here right now. And I'd like to make that in the forefront, that we're open to hear what people say. You have access to whatever we have access to, and that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you, Deb. And we're going to kind of round robin through the counselors here with the same question. Charles, why are you running again?
Well, you mentioned before, it was a very close race for me in 2019. And, I thought maybe not running again at this point, but because it was so close, it became pretty clear to me that, the residents in this ward, my message resonated with them. And I don't think I would have gotten as close if it hadn't. I was up against a very well-known name here in the village of Solvay, someone who had the seat that I was running for over 25 years, I believe, at the time. So for someone like me, a younger kid who's not from Solvay, I haven't lived here for that long. For me to come here with the ideas I had and run solely on my ideas, because I don't really have a background or a residency to speak of here, that people don't know me from living here my whole life. So they met me and they heard my ideas, and many of them voted for me. Almost 50% of them voted for me. So I figured, my message clearly made an impact and a lot of people agreed with it. So I want to give them a chance to vote for me again.
Great. And I'm so glad that you're making a second run. I think people when running for town and village governments for the first time think, oh, I'm one and done. But sometimes you need a second run. Many people, come very close in their first races and then decide not to run again, and they waste an opportunity. So I'm very glad that you're putting your name forward again. Mr. McVicker, why did you decide to run for another term on the Solvay board?
Well, like Debbie said, we are, as trustees and or mayor, we are advocates for the people. We are advocates for people who can't talk to them for themselves at some of these meetings. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility of the trustees and the mayor to represent and service all the people, not only in the wards that you're living in, but the whole village. We're representing everybody, and we're representing the village in a respect of taking care of it all, infrastructural stuff, your business, everyday monetary. I've always said to many of my people, small village can hurt your wallet faster than the federal government. And it's important to have responsible people there to run your local government and keep an eye on your tax dollars. I firmly have a belief that under the present government that we have, under the present leadership of this village, we've got a real problem. And I couldn't stop here. I've got to go further, and I've got to keep on fighting to keep this village going forward and represent it right.
Yes. Amen to that. Brittany, you're running for the first time. Why did you
Yes.
decide to put your name forward?
One of the biggest reasons I decided to put my name forward is that women comprise over 51% of the population in the United States, and we are not in government positions. We are not in the places that make decisions, and we need a wider representation of the diversity of the village. And as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, we need more representation in places of power. If residents don't see themselves reflected at a board meeting, how do they know that it's a safe place, that they have someone to talk to? And I moved here with my wife to raise a family. I'm not from here either, like Charles. So I'm not a household name, but we deliberately picked Solvay. And, if you don't like something, you need to be part of the change. You can't just complain about it.
That's so true as well. And I noticed that many of you, Charles, you're going to school for mental health, and Deb, you're from a healthcare industry, and Brittany, you're with social services. And I see that along all of our Democratic candidates this year, that people that are in social services or mental health services or health care occupations are starting to run for office. And I think that's because of COVID. Has awakened a community that has not necessarily always put themselves forward. But COVID is also rearing its head here in Onondaga County again and throughout America. But yet you still have to campaign and you have to go out there. So Deb, I'm going to go back to you to start this off. But what are your plans for campaigning this fall, and how are you planning to campaign with this possible rise with the Delta variant going on?
Well, for the fall, I will just be going door to door, and I will be wearing my mask, and I will be standing 6 feet from the door, and I will visit as many possible people as I can and try to have a conversation with them. And if not, I'll leave my information. They can always call me if they feel more comfortable. The fundraising will be a little bit different depending on what happens this fall and and more restrictions, but I will be having a small fundraiser again with COVID procedures in place to keep everything safe. But that's all I have planned for the fall. I can't say that as of right now, I'm seeing any problems with it. But again, as we continue forward, I'll just listen to what the the county has to say and how we should apply regulations or whatever else is going on. So.
And Bill, same question to you. How are you planning the campaign this fall? And has COVID really affected village business as well?
Oh, it is. Absolutely. We, every one of our departments has had problems with COVID, right from the police department through the highway department into the offices. Myself, I have 4 young adults in my family that are on the front line, including my daughter-in-law. And I hear about it all the time, and I will have a great deal of respect. I, like Deb, will probably be walking the street as much as I can, but we've got to have respect for the people that will answer the door or not. We've got to respect how they feel about us approaching them. Times are changed, and campaigns are going to change a little bit because of this. Certainly the village business has changed an awful lot. Things have slowed down, and we're catching up. We're catching up right now and playing catch up in a lot of ways. So yeah, the campaign is going to change a lot this year in the way we approach people. And it's all about keeping each other safe and healthy.
Now, Brittany, this is your first campaign and you're doing it in the middle of a pandemic. But, what are your plans for campaigning this fall? And, especially with the Delta variant making its way into Onondaga County?
So I do plan on going door to door as much as possible. I have masks. I have several different types that I will wear. I have a mask that will have a clear shield across my lips, so that if people have a hard time hearing or are hard of hearing or are deaf, we will be able to communicate. You can read my lips. Staying 6 feet apart, of course. I follow all advice given by Dr. Gupta here in Onondaga County. My work office works very closely with her. Hand sanitizing, I temperature check every day naturally, and I will not go out if I have a temperature or I don't feel well. I can also mail out flyers, do some mailers and social media posts, and I can also make phone calls as well. But like the other candidates have said, my biggest priority is keeping the village members safe and to keep myself safe and my own family. So if that means cutting visits out completely one day, that's what we have to do to stay safe. That's more important to me.
And Charles, you campaigned 2 years ago. It's going to be much different this time around. What are your plans for this fall?
Kind of the same. I'm going to try to go to door to door as much as I can, to try to connect with people directly. I have a method that I learned from the post office where I walk up, I ring the doorbell, and I take a few steps back. And I just I've always done it that way since I worked there. And I kind of did it the same way even before COVID, but it works perfectly now. I ring the doorbell and I take a few steps back. That way I'm not right in people's faces when they try to answer the door. Phone banking, especially when it gets closer, I'll be doing a lot of that. Whenever someone's not home, I leave them my phone number anyway. I leave my card with my number on it. So if they're not home or if they don't want to answer the phone and talk directly to somebody, they can just give me a call later or shoot me an email. All my information's on my cards. So anything like that I can do. But it's basically the same thing as before, just with some more precautions in place for COVID.
I'm very happy to hear all of you are still planning on going door to door, because I think last year when we were unvaccinated, Democrats did the right thing by kind of giving up the door to door, but I think it hurt us because we're always outspent money-wise. We're always outspent with mailers, and we've always been able to counter that with our work ethic and going door to door and meeting people. So I'm happy to hear that you're still planning to go door to door. Deb, if you're successful, and you will be,
Yes,
but
yeah.
when you are successful,
When
what
I
is
am.
your focus for your first term as mayor of Solvay?
Okay, when I am the mayor, I will, there's a couple things I want to do. Well, first of all, I'd like to get a better financial accountability of what's going on, a better look at the things that we're not able to look at now. And I'd like to, reach out to professionals or people that can help me organize things in a better way. Anything from departments to committees. One of my plans is to put in more multi-year planning into effect of not maybe working so impulsively like things are now. I think planning and muddling through and getting to a better place is what I expect to do. So right off the beginning, I guess I'd like to just maybe take a look at everything, get a better organizational feel, and put people into positions that I think will help me do that. And also invite, again, more voices to be heard at public meetings and more input and more debate from the trustees, who in fact are the people that should be making the decisions. The mayor's there as the guide at their meetings to help them come, facilitate them become making decisions and voting on different issues, as opposed to me handing down what I believe is the correct way, because I don't believe as a mayor I will do that. That is not my goal. That is not my prerogative. But I will make executive decisions as needed. So
Great. Brittany, when you're successful, what is going to be your focus as your first term on village council?
My first agenda item would definitely be safety. So we hear a lot about neighbors who feel that crime is creeping in too fast into Solvay. You can't prevent people from moving here that might not necessarily have the village's best interests at mind, but you can work closely with the police, with Neighborhood Watch, and let neighbors know how they can keep themselves safe. I would also like to work more along the lines of what Deb said is, have an equitable distribution of funds, take a really hard look at what the numbers are and the history of numbers and why, certain things are still being spent to certain services, and whether that's still applicable today, whether that still benefits the majority. And you ask those hard questions. And then always, improve the roads and improve the sidewalks. We have a lot of seniors in our community. We have a lot of people who are disabled. We have a lot of people who use wheelchairs and walkers and strollers. And there is not a lot of sidewalk repair happening across the village. We sometimes hear big splashes of things that are happening, but where are the pockets of places that get forgotten? Those are the places that I would like to focus on.
Charles, when you're successful, what is going to be your focus on your first term in office?
I think I have two main things really that I think I want to focus on the most. One of them is finding ways to fix old problems, I guess is the best way to put it. I talk to people all the time and we hear about problems all the time that they kind of just have lingered for a long time. And often I found that people say, they don't know what the solution is, and or they'll say, that things have been done this way forever. And, a common one is like, there's different properties that you'll find throughout the village. And this has kind of been touched on with like the equitable application of things. And one of them is the codes department. And I found that there's plenty of properties out there that could be and should be cited for things, problem properties, problem landlords and stuff. And you hear about it all the time that they just sit there like that forever and nothing ever gets done. And it'll get brought up in, a codes committee meeting, and someone will say, well, it's difficult to deal with. And I don't accept that. I'd like to really work on figuring out exactly what needs to be done to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen anymore. And so that people aren't getting, citations on their door for their grass being high, when 2 houses down, there's a house that's been there dilapidated for 5 years and hasn't gotten cited once, stuff like that. Man, I think I lost my train of thought, but there was another one there.
You'll have a chance in a second.
Yeah.
And Mr. McVicker, if when you're reelected, what's going to be your focus for your next term in office?
One of our biggest problems on the board is a lack of transparency by the mayor. This lack of transparency has hindered this board for the 6 years that I've been on the board. And New York state law dictates that we have access to all information within the village, financial information and otherwise. Well, the mayor claims transparency and an open door policy, and we can't run a village without proper information to do the job. And that is going to be one of the greatest things I'm going to try to change. You cannot run a village and not know what the mayor is doing behind the scenes. This gentleman that's been running this village has been running it on his own without the board knowing most of what he's doing till after it's done, until after it's cost to take the taxpayers' money. Secondly, I've always been about the infrastructure of this village. We have taxpayers that pay, I would say, we're not the lowest taxes in the county. We're not the highest, but they pay substantial taxes. And I don't think they're getting their money's worth. I believe the infrastructure in this village is failing a great deal. It took me 6 years to get 3 streets within my neighborhood done, which I got them done this year, and I'm still fighting to get the sidewalks done. But these people pay taxes and they expect it. they expect an attractive village for their dollars. They expect to have their houses that they keep up, to have good roads and good sidewalks in front of them. So infrastructure is very important to me. That's about it. I'll stop at that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think I always like to end these podcasts around, the 30-minute mark or so. But I have one more question to ask all of you, and we're gonna switch this up. We're gonna let Deb go last on this. So we'll start with you, Charles. What haven't we talked about? What is something that we haven't been able to touch on today, or something you want to reemphasize that you want the people out there to know?
One of the things that I think we could touch on is that a lot of what you're voting on is the ideas that we kind of have, but also what we'll fight for and what we'll do and who we will represent. And I think one of the biggest things that I like to stress for myself is my ideas, and I think my ideas are good. And like I said, I think part of the reason that I got as many votes as I did is because people agree that my ideas are good. One of the first arguments I had with Mayor Baiki, we've had many, and one of the first ones was about taxes and how we can find ways to reduce the spending that we have without cutting services. And he disagreed with me. And the person I'm running against, actually, he is agreeing that, we want to reduce taxes or at least lower spending. We agree on the idea, but how we get there is two different things. The guy I'm running against, he has mentioned at board meetings that he would reduce the library funding. And I think that is a horrible idea. I think that's, the Solvay Library is one of the pinnacles of this village. Me being a block away, I like this house for a reason. And part of that is because I'm so close to the library, and in December, I'm expecting my firstborn and I'd like to send him to that library. So I think, and it's just like I said, the ideas that people have, some people have bad ideas. And I think that's one of them. And I think that it's important to make sure that, the people that are in power to do things have good ideas and aren't going to be taking money from places that shouldn't be taken from to try to save a dollar here or there at the expense of something as valuable to the community as the Solvay Library.
Yeah, that's very, very, very good. Well said. Mr. McVicker, what haven't we talked about today that you wanted to make sure people knew?
Wow, that can go a long way, Dustin. Again, I just want to represent the people, and I want the people have what makes them happy. I think that our mayor that we have presently is not thinking about keeping the village up the way it should be kept. He's got other things on his mind, such as parties in the park. There's many, the list goes on and on. There's many things that this mayor has spent money on that is only pointed towards a certain amount of people in the village. This village is over 100 years old. Matter of fact, I believe it's 150 years old now. I think we had the last celebration, but the infrastructure is failing, and it's really important to take care of it. But we've got to have the money. We've got to have the money and the management of the money to take care of this infrastructure. And I don't think the money is being spent wisely.
Thank you.
And a lot of it is done without the board's knowledge. Again, his transparency leaves something to be desired.
Thank you, Bill. And Brittany, what haven't we talked on that you wanted to make sure people knew about?
I just like people to know that at the end of the day, my whole campaign is to promote kindness and to promote being a good neighbor. That's something that my wife coined when I had first decided to run, is that we should be the neighborhood party. I want neighbors, looking out for each other. I want them to know that I'm an approachable person. You can come and talk to me at any time. And I often hear, the village isn't the same that it used to be. And, it's not the old way. The old way was so good. And I don't think that we can get the old way back. I think that we as a society are always changing. Our cultures are always going to change, and they're going to mesh. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. Let's embrace it, and let's treat our neighbors like how we want to be treated, which is at the end of the day with kindness.
And Deb, we come to you for the last word. What haven't we talked about today that you want to make sure people know?
Well, I want to talk about that. I think we have the capability as a community to move forward. I'm looking forward to not going backwards, as Brittany brought to light, that many people said we want the village the way it used to be. As a fourth generation person from Solvay, I hear that a lot, and I don't obviously think that is not going to be done. What I think is we should be able to move forward to a new, modern, thriving community, the community that is equitable and people want to see. And I say when I'm in the trustee job, I say to a lot of people, what's fair for one is fair for all. And I want to see that in this village. I want to move forward where everybody is got the same voice and the same access to the village government and access to services as everyone else is. So I think that's it. Yeah, moving forward. Let's not go backwards. Let's just take the steps we need. 1.6 square miles, we can do it.
That's right. Small but mighty. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on Zoom with Czarny. You're the only village I'm having on, and I think we all know that the well-documented problems that have been on in Solvay, and if the level of discourse that you brought today to this podcast is something that you bring to village government, it'll be a well-received change in what is going on, and we'll leave it at that. But I want to thank you all for coming on, sharing your views, and most importantly, thank you for running and putting yourself out there. And it's been an honor talking with you today.
Thank you, Dustin, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin.
Well, remember, please remember that the Delta variant is still out there. It is still ravaging, especially the unvaccinated community across America and here in Onondaga County. So if you have not gotten vaccinated, please make an attempt. Get vaccinated. And if you can, wear a mask indoors. It's not mandated, but it is mandated in hospitals, schools, and in public transportation, including Ubers and ride shares. So protect those around you and protect yourself. And hopefully we can get out of this. And the best path out of this is to get vaccinated and take care of yourself. So please do so. I hope to see you out there voting in November. And I'm so glad to be able to bring these candidates to you. Take care. Goodbye.